Oil changes. AC coolant. 3 miles ahead. I jumped at the sound of honking, and I glanced in my rearview mirror to see a line of cars snaking behind me, all waiting for their turn to get back to civilization, too. I looked at my dash, hopefully, but the engine temperature needle was still rotating toward the top of the gauge, creeping closer to the red "Don't you dare keep driving" part. I sighed, switched off my turn signal, and went straight. "Only 3 miles, car," I said coaxingly. "You can do this." It couldn't. I had only gone about 1.5 miles when the dash suddenly lit up like a Christmas tree. The temperature needle was buried in the red. I lost count of the expletives I muttered as I guided the car onto the narrow shoulder and turned it off. I was on a steep incline, so I pulled the parking brake and hoped the car would stay put. Actually, part of me hoped it would roll off the side of the hill, catch on fire, and explode on contact with the rocky valley below. But then I'd really be stranded. I figured there was no point trying to take any of my belongings with me. The little I had left to call my own would probably be safe out there. I hadn't passed a single car since I had gone straight through that stop sign. I grabbed my purse, locked up the car, and started walking. As I hoofed it up the incline, I noticed there were fewer cacti, but quite a few taller, leafier trees dotting the landscape. It seemed that the higher I climbed into the hills, the less threatening the plants were. It wasn't much of a silver lining, but it was all I had. It was hot out, probably 100 degrees or more, but at least the sun was sinking fast. By the time I finally spotted a whitewashed cinder block garage around a curve in the road, the sun had just sunk beneath the hills on the horizon. The same faded blue paint I had seen on the plywood sign was also on the side of the garage, with "Done Right Auto Repair" written in a flowing script. By the time I walked through the creaking wooden door at the front of the garage, I was sweaty, tired, and fighting the urge to just start yelling. It wasn't that I was mad at anyone. I was just fed up with the whole situation. "Be right with you." The man's voice echoed from a room behind the front office, and soon the body it belonged to appeared in the doorway. He somehow looked like the garage itself. His oil-streaked white overalls seemed too large on his lean frame, and his blue eyes were as faded as the paint on the sign. He smiled, his teeth bright in contrast to his tanned face. "Good timing. I was just closing up for the weekend. What can I do for you?" "For the weekend?" I repeated. I brushed a sweaty lock of auburn hair out of my eyes. "Yeah, I take weekends off so I can spend more time with my daughter." The man gave me a quick wink. "Unless, of course, it's an emergency." I waved vaguely in the direction I had come from. "My car overheated. I had to ditch it on the side of the road." The man nodded grimly. "That is an emergency. Let's get your car towed up here, then we'll figure out what's next. I'm Nick Dalton." "Olivia Kendrick. Thanks." Nick pulled a rag with even more oil and dirt on it than his overalls out of a pocket. He wiped his hand on it before reaching out. I tried to keep my grimace to a minimum as I shook his proffered hand, since I had no interest in being covered in oil, too. Nick's grip was warm and firm, and I was surprised to feel my lips start to turn into a genuine smile. There was just something comforting about him. I might be stranded in the middle of nowhere, I thought, but at least I'm stranded with this guy. In just a few minutes, I was sitting uncomfortably in the passenger seat of Nick's tow truck. The springs sagged, and a rip in the faux leather upholstery had been covered up with silver duct tape that squeaked every time I shifted. Nick asked me a steady stream of questions as we drove, like where I was headed, where I had come from, and how I had managed to stray so far from the interstate. When we pulled up next to my car and came to a stop, Nick whistled. "You came all the way from Nashville in that?" He sounded both horrified and impressed. "It's all I could afford," I said stiffly, shrugging. Nick looked at me keenly. "I just didn't think someone carrying such an expensive designer purse would drive a..."